It is a beautiful let me make sure everything is connected and streaming. Let's get a sound check. All right, we're live. We've got Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. Usually your best viewing experience is on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn just because of the horizontal design. Let's make sure our sound sounds okay. Is on YouTube. Yep, perfect. Awesome. So today wanted to talk about smart home buying in Utah. Interest rates keep going down. We've got a little bit of up and down right now with political uncertainty again. But a lot of buyers are now able to actually afford a home with interest rates coming down. So I thought it would be great to have a conversation about things to think about, things to know, and things to be aware of to be a smart home buyer. Should you have questions, this is definitely an Ask Me Anything. You can use the chat in any of those platforms that you're on and that you're seeing me. You can also text me. I think my phone number is on like all the headers of all my different pages. DM me. I should be able to see all the DMs, but I for sure will see all the text messages. I'll put my phone right here for us. But yeah, let's jump in. So I thought, and those of you who are watching this as a recording, I'd love to have you guys put some comments in the comment section. Those of you who are live with us, put the comments in the live stream section. But I'd love to hear maybe some of you guys who have bought a home before. What was a challenge or mistake that you looked back on that caused you to feel like you didn't make a smart decision? You didn't make the best choice. Something happened. For those of you who are wanting to buy a home, who've never purchased before, I'd love to see if you'd comment about like, what is a fear of yours? It could be maybe about the inspection process, making sure you don't buy a money pit. It's always a great movie if you've never seen it back in the day. It could be about costs that you're not aware of. All sorts of other things that could come up. For us to jump in, what I thought we could start talking about is costs. Yeah. So I actually, let me share my screen. I've got a blog that I've put out. What nobody tells you about closing costs. Sometimes this comes as a surprise to folks. Let me zoom in and make that a little bigger for the live stream. There we go. Many times people get to the closing table and they're like, what are these costs? What did I not know about? What do I have to pay? Why do I have to pay these things? Most good lenders, and a lot of the good lenders I work with, prepare you ahead of time to know about all those different pieces. And it's conversations that we have as well. Hey, Paul, welcome. But closing costs are essentially just the costs associated with making the purchase, making the sale. If you're selling a home, it can be things like paying for lender fees. Sometimes they've got to pull credit reports. They've got to, they separate all those fees out. If you decide to buy a rate down to make it cheaper, there's going to be that cost. As a realtor, we have some costs associated. We need to be compensated for our times. We usually see that at closing. Lender fees are oftentimes 0.5 to 1% of the loan amount, so they're not huge, but they are kind of separate from processing fees. You'll usually see that underwriting fees. There can be hundreds and tons of different fees. I always recommend when you are looking at purchasing a home, This is one of those smart decisions or smart approaches. Review your contract, your loan with, I say, usually 3 lenders. Sometimes your bank directly. I've got a list of lenders I can recommend you. The ones that I always work with are very minimal on fees. But you may have a family member, a friend, or some other connection for a lender. Take that time to give them all a call and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. I would like to know at the end of the day on that settlement statement, what am I going to see for the lender fees? What is this going to cost to do a loan with you? That gives you so much power and so much knowledge to make the right decision. Sometimes the cheapest isn't always the best. Definitely there's that mindset of you get what you pay for. But there might be a situation where you don't need to pay all this extra stuff because you're just buying maybe your first time home. You just need something simple, be able to get in, be done, and cost is the game. There are tons of crazy different types of loans out there. There's one out there called like a bridge loan where you're putting up collateral of like multiple homes. So those people who own a couple different properties and you're bridging the loan against them. There's a whole bunch of different kind of fees that happen with those type of loans. Most normal everyday person buying a home, you want a simple, streamlined, cheap loan process that they can provide service and take care of you. Title insurance is another one that oftentimes surprises folks. So let's first answer what title insurance is. So imagine you buy a home and later down the road, 6 months, a year, somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have a lien on this home for some work that I did in the bathroom remodeling it, and I was never paid. I need you to pay me. And you're thinking to yourself, heck, I don't want to pay this guy. I don't know who this guy or this gal or whatever, whoever this person is. So title insurance are things that if there is a lien against the property, or they call them clouds or defects, should stuff like that happen after closing, you have insurance in a variety of different ways and a variety of different coverages to take care of those and resolve them. Could be like easement disputes, could be boundary disputes, it could be liens, all sorts of different stuff. So there is a lender policy available for the seller. Normally in Utah, the seller provides a title policy for the property when they sell it. And then there is another policy for a buyer that can provide some additional coverage there as well. And there's different levels of title insurance. There's like a basic policy. For a teeny bit more, there's an expanded policy. Well worth it, in my opinion, to get the expanded policy. That's become the standard. So essentially, you're making those, paying for that, either the buyer or the seller, combination of both, as part of buying or selling a home. Same idea. One of the smart approaches that I always recommend to my clients is, I can provide you a list of title insurance companies that I work with that are really minimal on fees. Give a few a call. What does your title insurance look like for this home if I were to buy it for this price? They can tell you all those details. What is everything listed? I also look for title insurance companies that can provide an experience that matches my client. Sometimes I'm working with a family, they're like first time buying their home. This is like a huge deal. It's a big celebration. The title company is usually where you go to like close and sign all the documents. I look for companies that can provide an experience to match my clients. So sometimes that looks like a huge celebration. We've got like confetti cannons. We've got, Martinelli's, or if they want to drink something a little more stronger, we've got that available. Other clients that I work with don't want all that fluff, don't care for an amazing celebration experience. They just want to have somebody who takes care of business, signs, and away we go. So I have companies that I can work with that do both. And I find the companies that I've found and I recommend very minimal on fees. I feel like you don't need to pay extra if that's not something you need. Appraisal. This is something that surprises people. When you are buying a home, most of us use a loan, get a mortgage to buy a home. We don't just have $300,000, $400,000 lying around to just pay cash for a home. That cost from a buyer usually gets paid up front. So you find a home, you make an offer, you get under contract. The lender then calls you and says, "Okay, we need to order the appraisal. Give me $500 to $800 so that we can do that." You're like, "Wait, what?" Again, the lenders I work with, they usually are on that lower end, very minimal. You don't need to pay a ton. The reason they do that is, should that loan back out, like the lender, the mortgage company, they feel they don't want to be responsible for that, because otherwise they'd be paying for appraisals all day. So to kind of have the buyer have a little bit of skin in the game, they have the buyer make that payment upfront. It also gives you as a buyer a little bit of, you kind of got to lock in a little bit and have a good commitment about the purchase, because if you walk away, you're out that money. You can't get it back. Something I do with my clients to make sure that this is a smart decision, a smart approach, is we make sure to order this when it makes sense. There's some timelines of where it needs to happen and where it can happen. I usually try and bump that up to when it needs to happen, so that way we can answer all these other questions and due diligence and inspections and all this stuff before you pay that extra money on top, and then we walk away and you're out that money. Escrow and settlement fees, these can depend. It covers kind of the coordination of work. Oftentimes when you buy or sell a home, you have to have a new deed recorded with the state. That's usually like a $45 cost. You'll see that on your closing statement. We also get into kind of the prepaid items. Homeowners insurance, that gets prepaid for the year. It's kind of like the lender wants to make sure that the property's covered, so should something happen, all of a sudden they're not just lost a property that's, their investment. Property taxes get prorated. Prepaid interest, that one always kind of sucks. Because like if you close on like April 5th, your next payment isn't due until, usually your first payment isn't due until May 5th or something like that. So they charge you that interest ahead of time. Yay, thank you, love interest. HOAs are similar. You'll have, if you're buying a home part of an HOA, you usually have to prepay some HOA dues, prepay a transfer fee to transfer the property into your name within the HOA. Sometimes those can get negotiated to have the seller pay, the buyer, different options there. But those are a lot of the things that you'll see. Again, kind of what sellers pay. TLDR, closing costs are real. They can be significant. Be aware of what they are. Make those smart in investigation steps ahead of time, so that you're not surprised when all of a sudden there's this extra cost that showed up. That's kind of one big piece I wanted to cover. Let's see if we have any questions. Check all the different platforms we're on. And I've got multiple screens, so I'm always looking like back, forth, left, right. Okay, so a question about title insurance. One piece of title insurance covers the property, and they base it off the purchase price of the home. So it's kind of similar to car insurance. If you buy a car that's like $5,000, your auto insurance is probably going to be like $20 a month. It's probably going to be super cheap. If you buy a car that's $100,000, your insurance is probably going to be a couple $100s a month at least. Title insurance works the same way. So there's that kind of escalating scale. If you're buying a home for, usually I've seen them around $300,000 to $400,000. Your title insurance is usually about $2,000. Obviously, getting up into $1 million, it can be $5,000, $7,000. It's going to vary with that purchase price of the home. A lot of the companies that I work with, the other fee that they have is kind of that escrow and that processing fee. A lot of the ones that I work with, it's like a flat fee of like $475, which is super reasonable in my opinion. Other companies I've seen, they can charge as much as $1,000, and I'm just kind of like, what am I getting for that extra money? Part of making those smart decisions. Let's see. Hi, Grace. Hi, Luis. Welcome. All right. Let's see. Any other questions? All right. Let's jump into kind of the next area that I wanted to talk about. Kind of like the idea of what's the market doing? How can I make a smart decision on when to buy? When does that make sense? Now, a couple things to know. There is never a bad time to own real estate. Even if you think back to 2008, for those of you who are around at that time, our last big recession where prices went crazy, there was all the mortgage-backed securities issues. Prices of homes plummeted because everybody was foreclosing. Short sale, if you know that word, that was like the common word of the day. I was even like in line to buy a short sale at that time. Short sales took like 6 months. It was forever long. So the one we were looking at the time, we backed out. Even given that craziness, the historical appreciation of real estate in Utah, it generally values double about every 10 years. So that's why I say there's never a bad time to own real estate. One of the key things for me, and what I talk to a lot of my clients about, is buying a home is an investment. Even if it's the home that you're going to live in, you're not going to rent it out, that home is an investment that's going to appreciate and grow in value over time. One of the first homes that I bought, I think I paid $132,000. It was around the 2008 time. It was a rough home. Like, there was no ceiling in the kitchen. The roof had to be replaced. It had aluminum wiring, for those of you who know a little bit about electricity. That doesn't work. That's bad. So we had to replace the entire electrical system with copper wiring. Tons of work. I think after all the work was done, I did a special kind of loan where they'd like pay to have the work done as part of the loan. Fantastic. After it all was done, I think it was around like $150, $180 was the end purchase price. That home now goes for $450. I've obviously moved, but if I would have stayed there, I would have hundreds of thousands of dollars of gain in equity. Some of my other blog posts talk about the power of that equity and what you can do with it. That's part of making a smart buying decision. Me, I saw this home that was in rough shape that I'm thinking, oh, that house is on sale. They will sell that one for cheap because they just want to get rid of it. It's going to take so much work. But for me, buying it, putting that work in, slowly repairing it, cleaning it up. It is now like top dollar, and that is an amazing investment for me. I now rent it out, so I still have that initial mortgage on there. I think it's down to like, I think it's under $100,000 left on that mortgage. So I have like almost $400,000 of equity. Again, tons of things I could do with that. Now I say that, again, it's always a good time to own real estate. A lot of people, similar to like stock market trading, try to find times when they can like buy it and get a deal. They want to wait till interest rates or prices come down just enough so that they can get like an extra little gain. And sure, nothing against that approach. But sometimes that's going to take longer than you realize. And getting in, by the time you get in versus the time you close or lock in your rate or something like that, it could have already shifted and you've lost that time. Usually I see cash buyers kind of chasing the market like that. They have a better opportunity to do that because they can move very quickly as a cash buyer and be able to buy it, move on, and have it purchased. Whereas when you're getting a loan, you're going to move into the home. This is where maybe a first time you buy. There's so many other variables that little bit of gain probably isn't going to make that much of a difference for you. Obviously, there's tons of stats around real estate. I monitor and take care of a lot of those for you. But one that I recommend all buyers and sellers be aware of, this oftentimes gets ignored, but days on market. It's abbreviated as DOM. Let me slide this over a little bit. Hey Lars, welcome. Days on market is how long essentially a home has been active on the market before it gets sold. So as an example, January 1st, the home goes on the market, the home gets sold and closed and all that done January 31st. That is 31 days on market, start to finish. Now, homes vary, and we're going to look. So right now, the entire market, let me kind of zoom into this section of this is the back end of UtahRealEstate.com where I get some stats here. So the entire Utah market for the last month, so 2/21 to 3/21, days on market is 76. Oh, my face is covering that. There we go, 76. That means it takes 76 days from when a home is listed before it's sold, start to finish. That's pretty, I'm going to say it's pretty high. Normally in Utah, we see this to be around 30 days. And if you remember hearing all those crazy stories in around 2022, when like a home would go under contract in like 5 days, this average days on market was like 15, 20. It was super low. That's when things are flying off the shelf. Now we can break this down and see, what about even just to March? 74, so we're picking up. What if we look at just Salt Lake County? 65, it's moving a little quicker. What about Utah County? 79, it's actually a little slower down there. Davis, 63, so that's moving and going. What else? How about Weber, 65? I always like looking at like Summit and Wasatch, kind of that Park City area up there. 93, 114. Those homes sit on there for a while, but also those homes, most of them are easily over $1 million. They don't kind of fit in the statistical, model and approach. So when we look at homes for kind of your everyday people, that's why I tag myself as the realtor for real people. We're looking around 65. This gives you a little bit of power. When you look at a home, it will tell you the days on market. Generally, how I see this play out is right when a home gets listed, those first 15 days, sellers are usually pretty strict on the price. They're not willing to negotiate much. They're trying to get like the most money they can, and understandably so. After homes sit on for 20 days, for 30 days, for 45 days, and they're still not under contract, sellers are usually much more interested and willing to negotiate. There's also this psychological thing that happens with sellers where they start getting nervous or scared and they think, oh my gosh, my home is never going to sell. What do we got to do? What do we got to do to make it sell? So for my sellers, I tell them 65 days is the norm right now. That is our average days on market. No need to panic. This is okay. It's going to take a minute. For buyers, I talk to them about this gives us an opportunity to find homes that we could probably get for a little cheaper than what we would if it was like first day on the market. Part of the other psychology on the buyer side is that they will see a home, see that it's sat for 40 days, and they're like, what's wrong with it? Why is nobody buying this home? Let's go investigate. Let's go figure out what is wrong with it, because buying a home that maybe has a couple of issues, maybe it's a little smelly and needs the carpet to be replaced, those homes usually are on sale and you can get for the best price possible. It does take a little bit of vision to either see past or smell past the smell, or see past the couple walls that need to be fixed, that horrible paint color. A lot of that stuff is so easily fixed, but it's just not desirable. So people just move on and don't even have interest on it. So as a smart buyer, smart home buying in Utah, that is something to truly look for. Price per square foot is the other thing that I recommend people look at. Now, the price that a seller lists a home, ultimately that is their decision of what that price is. As a realtor, I'm going to tell you what I think it's going to sell for. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you this inflated number of you're going to, maybe you're going to get $500,000 for this home when really it's going to sell for $450,000. I don't determine the price that it's actually going to sell for. A seller, although they're picking the price that they're going to list it for, they don't get to pick what it goes for as well. The market determines that. The value that supply and demand, people are seeing, people are willing to pay for it. Us on this side trying to sell a home really have no distinction of that. Where this kind of matters though, putting a home on for $500,000, me as a realtor helping you buy a home, I'm looking at what the comparable homes are selling for. And if I see a gap like that, I'm going to tell you, this home, similar homes are selling for $450,000. This one's going for $500,000. They're probably asking too much. Sometimes that'll give us some opportunity to negotiate down and get back to that normal market price. In other situations, the seller's going to be sitting for a while. You've heard people probably say when they get a phone call from a realtor, like, hey, are you looking to sell your home, or would you take an offer for your home? My dad's one that's always like, sure, $1 million. Like, obviously that's not real. It's a joke. But some people, when they put their home on the market, that's truly what they're thinking. They want to get way above. They think it's worth it. And sure, everybody thinks their home is worth everything in the world because it's perfect and it's meaningful to them. But the market determines that price. Now, that price is broken out by the square footage of the home. That's where the price per square foot comes from, if that wasn't obvious. That's one of the key items that we can look at and compare home to home to home and kind of see where is that comparable pricing landing. Because sometimes you'll see a home, and again, that $500,000 example, you'll see 3 at $500,000, but that price per square foot is different because very rarely do we see homes that are absolutely identical in square footage. That's the number to keep an eye on. This will vary by neighborhood. This will vary by size of home. Generally, the smaller home, the higher price per square foot, because a 600 square foot home selling for $300,000 opposed to a 1,500 square foot home selling for $400,000, like you're just going to naturally have that calculation be different. Smart buying, look at the price per square foot and think about how that plays in and what makes sense and what doesn't. Interest rates, they're not fixed even after you kind of lock in your rate as a buyer. Some things that can change it are things like a rate lock. Those generally can lock you in for a set amount of time. But if the rate goes down, sometimes you can unlock the rate and then lock back in at a lower rate. Great opportunity to be smart, make a better decision, save some money on interest. There's also rate buydowns. This is kind of where looking at what financially makes sense, how much these things cost, tie into that smart buying. Let's make sure to use your money wisely. Rate buy down is like a permanent buy down of your rate. You can buy it down to 1%. There's a fee for that. Sometimes we should calculate out what that fee, how much that fee costs, and like how long would it take to get the return on investment if you didn't reduce the rate. Like we need to do some calculations there and make sure it makes sense. There are also temporary buy downs. A common one is a 2-1 buy down is what it's called. So your first year, your interest rate is reduced by 2%. The second year, your interest rate is reduced by 1%. And then in year 3, you go to your normal interest rate. In a market when there's some opportunity to negotiate, oftentimes you can have, as a buyer, you can have a seller pay for a 2-1 buy down. This is like them paying a huge chunk of your interest and giving you 2 years to adjust to that payment, to have kind of a slow building. Oftentimes people who get these, you've just bought a home, you want to paint, you want to make it your own, you want to put in new carpet. Having that first year of 2 percentage points down lowers your payment a good bit. Now you can pay and afford to do those things. Second year, same. You're maybe slowing down on those improvements, but that'll give you some time to do those things. Here's a fun story. So I helped a client secure, for them it was $7,500 was how much the temporary buy down was going to cost. It's reduced, again, 2% for the first year. That was saving them $550 a month. And this isn't like $1 million home. Like this was somewhere around like 400, 500,000. What would you do with an extra $550 a month? Like that's a good chunk of change. And then that second year, it saved them about $280 a month. Huge chunk of their payment removed. They had so much more flexibility to kind of grow into that mortgage. Some other smart things to look at is neighborhoods and kind of the neighborhood level. So we kind of broke down the days on market by counties. That can be done by city, by zip code, like it can get down super specific. Understand the days on market in that area. Just like we talked with Park City, 114, 93, that's normal. So if you see something that's maybe 10 days on market, again, the seller's probably not going to be willing to negotiate very much. But if you find something that's been sitting on there 100, 150, hey, maybe we can do some negotiation there. Let's see. Price reductions, we can look at all those, how long those usually take in those different areas. Bottom line, there's a couple things to read in the market. I'll look at all the other stats that are meaningful and important and educate you along the way. But do be aware of those first couple so that you can make some smart decisions. Okay, let's see if we've got any questions. My throat's getting dry. Okay, so question is like, how do you, we were talking about calculating that rate buy down or that temporary 2-1 buy down. Good lenders will run those calculations with you. They will give you like financial charts. Sometimes if you're not the best with numbers, let's talk through it. Let's work together on it. You can always take it to an accountant, a CPA, for another set of eyes. But generally, a financial professional should be the one to run those calculations and double check. You can run some rough math yourself. Something like, a rate buy down is sometimes a little bit easier. You can know this is how much interest it's going to save me. This is how much I would have paid, and do some basic calculations to understand how long, and then is that worth it? Especially when you start thinking about things like refinancing. If you refinance a couple years in, but you did a rate buy down for the entire length of your loan, you might have paid all that extra money for really no good reason, no good value, especially if you're going to refinance. Sometimes life happens, you got to do it anyway, but real estate is generally a long-term game, so you want to make sure to make decisions that will support and back those smart buying decisions. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions just yet. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was choosing a realtor. This is where you can really make a difference and make some smart decisions. So a lot of folks, the common practice when you're looking for a realtor is like friends or family. Who do you know that's a realtor? Like, okay, let's go, let's do it. And sure, that's great. I would love to support all of you. But I know I'm not the realtor for everybody. I specify that I'm the realtor for real people because I approach things differently. If you've seen a lot of my videos, I oftentimes will wear a polo, sometimes a button-down shirt, but I'm not a suit coat or a tie kind of guy. I oftentimes am wearing very nice jeans, nice shoes, but I'm not wearing, a suit. I find that the type of people who want to work with me, those type of things aren't important, and they don't make a difference in my opinion. There are some people out there that they expect their realtor to be in a suit every darn time. Great. That's great. Let me find somebody to help you that will do that. I'm not the realtor for you. I find that being relatable to people, being personal with people, comes through having a professional appearance, but not so overly dressed up or stuffy. And it's kind of funny. A lot of times you'll see realtors who are selling these multi-million-dollar homes. You would expect, and just, thought process, you'd think that realtors selling multi-million-dollar homes would be in like this very expensive fancy suit. Those are the business people who are buying these homes, these company owners and all this stuff. Oftentimes those realtors dress even more casual than I do. They've got jeans that have holes in them. They've got just a trendy t-shirt on. Their hair's maybe in a ponytail, which for me sometimes, like, it blows my mind that for me that's too casual. But that idea of like approachable, not being too stuffy, those are some keys for me of what makes selecting a realtor and having a good working relationship. We can focus on the house, the process, making smart decisions, and not worry our time about, oh, I'm not in a button-up t-shirt. So a couple things to look for. And I kind of frame this as if you're a realtor that, even if it is a friends and family, great. I'd still say consider them. If there's somebody that you would hire to work for you, for your company, where you work, maybe you're a team leader or something, if you would hire them to work for you, they're probably a good fit to be your realtor. If they're just friends and family and you're like, I probably wouldn't hire them, maybe you need to do a little more investigation before you make that decision. So treat it like a hiring decision. Now, you'll see sometimes realtors are like, oh, I've sold 30 homes this year. I've helped clients buy 20 homes this year. All these numbers. I don't think that's necessarily relevant. And agents I find that are doing tons and tons of, we call them transactions like that, sometimes I feel lose the personal touch. Again, if that's an important piece for you, these are just those smart pieces to think about before just jumping in and hiring a realtor. I think looking at somebody that has made purchases or sales in specific neighborhoods, or at least understands the dynamic of where you're looking to buy, that is key. But I don't think having somebody who sold 50 homes in that neighborhood truly makes the difference. Having a good agent, they're going to answer those questions specifically, the characteristics of the neighborhood, what's going on with pricing, timing, speed, all of that. Those are the pieces that matter. One other thing I want to call out, and I've had a few clients actually bring this up to me. One of the roles of a realtor is when somebody's moving maybe out of the area or out of the state, we can help you find an agent in that area. I know for you, as kind of a home buyer moving to another state, you probably don't know anybody. You don't know, what how do I pick a good realtor? Like you have nothing to go on. You're just going to start Googling and hopefully you land in a good spot. Part of my role is that I will investigate different qualities of realtors in the area that you're going to, and we'll talk about to align on like what specifically would be meaningful for you. But oftentimes those realtors who are pushing through tons of different transactions, they have a team working for them. And how that looks and manifests in the day-to-day is that oftentimes you'll get pawned off from that main person to somebody else. And pawn off isn't the greatest language, I realize that, but majority of your time will be spent working with somebody else. And it's kind of frustrating. And I've had clients feel like they were pawned off and they didn't love that because they felt like that main person had the great reputation, the great communication. They felt like they clicked together. The vibe was good, vibe check. So getting then down to the nitty gritty and getting passed off to somebody else where they felt like they got pushed, the relationship wasn't great, they kind of regretted the decision of making the purchase of the home. We can avoid a lot of that. So when I'm looking for a realtor in another area for somebody, as you're looking for a realtor to represent you, what does their day-to-day look like? If they've got those big transactions, likely they've got that team that you're going to be working with other people a lot more frequently than you are with the one person. My business specifically, I'm the person you call. It's just me. You will have a lender. They will answer lending questions, and I'll work with you on the title, because sometimes we don't deal with that every day, so sometimes that becomes a little confusing for most folks. So I will partner to help translate that information, but it's me who you're working with. Ask your prospective realtor, how do they handle awkward moments? Being a gay man myself, many times I've been asked, oh, about your wife. Nope. He, not she. There's many different situations, not even just in the LGBTQ plus community, but maybe it's a single mother I'm working with, some friends moving in. There's always going to be some level of an awkward dynamic. I had some clients that I was helping. It was a father who was helping buy a place with his daughter, and all of I can't remember if it was the lender, the title, or the other agent, but all they saw was the name. They saw the last name being the same, and then they saw like a masculine first name and a feminine first name. And they made the comment of like, oh, well, aren't they spouses? No, no, they're not. Part of my role as your realtor is to address all those uncomfortable, awkward situations ahead of time and behind the scenes so that you never even have to worry about them. Sometimes like an inspector, I get to the inspections early, and I kind of brief the inspector on like, this is the situation. This is, if we need to talk about how to address people, if we need to talk about pronouns, if we need to talk about family relationships, familial status these days, where sometimes you have a chosen family instead of a blood family. You have different names. How does that all tie together? I make sure to guide people so that they're ready and can be as efficient and proactive as possible before you even come into the picture or into the conversation. It's kind of like that buffer. I act as that buffer and take care of that for you. Negotiation philosophy. This is another one to kind of ask as you're interviewing your prospective realtor. Here's a question. Walk me through how you approached a recent negotiation where you got a client, something significant. What was your strategy and why? Sounds like a job interview, because it truly is. I believe in kind of getting to win-win situations for buyers and sellers. I don't think anybody walks away feeling good when one side feels like they just got annihilated. So working through, hey, this is something my client is interested in and would be valuable to them. What would it take to get your client on board with that, to get them to that same place? Those are the conversations that I like to have. I don't like to be just that, like, you'd hear oftentimes that bulldozer kind of example where people just bulldoze over people and push to get the best for everything, but then you've destroyed a lot of stuff in the process and left a pretty nasty wake. Communication. This is a very important one. How do they communicate? Do they respond promptly? Is it hard to get a hold of them? Can you call your realtor and they answer? Or is it hours and hours and hours before they get back to you? There's an idea in real estate and real estate transactions. Gosh, sorry, my throat. There's an idea in real estate that time is of the essence. Like, it literally says that in our contracts. We have very specific timelines that are down to the hour for deadlines. If you're working with somebody who doesn't respond and who isn't timely in that same manner, you might have an issue. You might get to a deadline and miss it. You could potentially lose your deposit, your earnest money. This is a big one. And it's so surprising to me that this is even a question, but I think that just talks about me, that I think that this is important and others don't. When I have a home that I'm listing for sale, many times when another agent calls me, they'll even comment, "Thank you for picking up the phone." I'm like, that just seems so standard to me. Why would you not pick up the phone? But likewise, I have worked with agents who have been extremely difficult to communicate with. I'll text them, never hear back, call them days before I get a response. I feel like that's a disservice to your clients. So that's something I'm at worst case, because maybe I'm meeting with a client or have a couple things in line, it's like maybe an hour or two before I get back to you. I can definitely even provide references of my existing clients that they will tell you that same thing. Don't skip chemistry questions. There should be some sort of vibe, some sort of good chemistry. You should have some trust there. There's going to be stressful moments. We're going to need to work together. We're going to have to talk about difficult decisions. If there's no chemistry and it just doesn't flow very well, it's going to be clunky and awkward. Don't forget to ask questions when you're looking at a realtor about chemistry. All right, we are coming down to our last few minutes here. Hey, on my website, should you want to have a deeper discussion about anything we've talked about, if you want to talk about your specific situation, buying, selling, no pressure, no pitch, just conversation, on my website I have a spot that you can book some time with me. Takes a second to load. There we go. Pulls up my calendar, grab some time with me. Let's chat. Again, no pressure, no sales pitch. Let's just find out what's good, best for you. A lot of what we've covered today is the blog section of my website, but I also have a market statistics side on my website where this can give you a lot of those same statistics that we looked over, like days on market. So here's example Salt Lake County. I've got a townhome coming up next week. It's going to be for sale. Some older sales. But here's like average days on market, active listings, median list price. And these are constantly updated for each county. So a lot of good stuff to look at in there. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Okay. Kind of a chemistry question. So the question is about does family, like if you have a family member who's a realtor and you decide to not work with them, is that offensive? It's kind of like being not picked in dodgeball. Sure, there's definitely a little bit of like, oh man, I wished I could have worked with them. But I understand that sometimes family creates different dynamics that aren't best situations for working together like that. I actually had an extended family member who did work with me, and part of the role as a realtor is we have a lot of ethics and code of conduct that we follow, and one of those items is confidentiality. They were concerned about potentially working together, that I might know their financial numbers, that they don't want the rest of the family to know how much they make. They don't want the rest of the family to know how much they bought the house for. And I was able to talk with him and give him some examples that it's not anybody else in the family's business. I'm even hesitant often to even talk about who in the family I'm working with. Like, working with this extended family member, most of my family don't even know. They have no clue. Very selectively, there's a couple that it needed to come up that I shared with them. Like an example, I had another family member who did a repair at this family member's home that I had helped purchase, so it was kind of obvious and through the conversation. But they don't know how much they paid for the home. They don't know any financials. The other thing that is good to know, I, as a realtor, focus on real estate. Those are the pieces that like you can hold me accountable to. I'm not a lender. The lender is generally the one who you're having all those financial conversations with. They know your income, they know your investments, they know your debt to income, your credit card bills, all that stuff. Because that's what they have to use to help you get a loan. I don't know any of that. And I work with lenders who don't tell me because they shouldn't tell me. It doesn't matter to me how much somebody makes, what their balance is on their credit card. None of that's relevant to me and not important. What is important that I talk with the lender about, how much of a home can they qualify, how much of a payment are they looking for, and then some of those interest rate buy down opportunities. How do we need to focus and strategize for making a purchase? That's it. The rest is between a client and their lender. Those just give me that framework of, okay, this is how we need to move forward and this is what we need to look for. So that kind of falls a little bit under the chemistry section. I know we're coming up on the hour. There was one more question. Let me find it again. Oh, yeah, strategy. Oftentimes, so let me back up. There are good realtors. There are not so good realtors. One of the pieces that I also recommend, and I've done some social media posts about this, is asking strategy type questions when selecting a realtor. Agents who aren't the best in my opinion, maybe they use a cell phone to take pictures of the home, they put it on the MLS, and they wait. For me, that's not enough. The one home that I used cell phone pictures was a home that had fire damage, that I had to wear a mask to go inside, like a full-on respirator, because having had a fire, it was toxic. I went in and grabbed a couple quick photos and grabbed some photos of the outside. Great. And I say this as an example just because every home is different and every home is going to require a unique approach, a unique approach to marketing, a unique strategy. So if you're thinking about selling your home, asking a realtor, what are those specific marketing pieces you would do to sell my home? If you're looking to buy, this is the area I'm looking to buy, this is the type of home I'm looking to get. What are those specific strategy pieces that you would do to help me get that home? Those are the pieces that matter. Although I took cell phone pictures of that home, I took a different strategy and I marketed it to investors. I found Facebook investment groups. I emailed other realtors to connect with their investor clients. All this other marketing took place, but as part of the investment community, they all went to the home and kind of did a bid of what it would take to fix it up, how they wanted to fix it up, and what that was going to cost them. So my photos on my phone just served a purpose of showing, A, the home exists, and this is a little bit of what the condition is. Other homes that I've worked on, every other home I've worked on to sell, professional photography, absolutely. I even had 2 other homes that were investment type properties. They were super old, rough shape. I still had a professional photographer go in and properly capture the place so that it's still presented as best as possible. Videography. I oftentimes will do a walkthrough, or at least a quick tour of the home. Those homes that were investment properties, I didn't do that because that wasn't relevant to those investors. Those investors aren't going to live there. So again, this just kind of shows some examples of that different strategy and different approach, because every home is different and every home is going to require a little bit different adjustment to a strategy. Okay, with that, we're at time, usually about an hour. It starts cutting us out anyway. Thank you so much for joining. Again, those of you who are watching this as a playback, would love to see some comments down below. Do you like what you've heard today? What else have you heard that maybe I haven't talked about today? But look forward to seeing you soon. On my site, I've got a couple open houses coming, and I'm going to do a virtual open house next week as well. So you can log on. And also our next live stream, similar to this, is kind of an Ask Me Anything. Let's see when I've got that scheduled for. April 16th, 5 p.m. So